It's not just you. YouTube sponsors are almost always terrible, and they aren't going to get any better.
The online counseling service BetterHelp is giving back nearly $8 million to customers.
This video in particular is sponsored by BetterHelp, and I'm grateful for that.
Traditional markets on edge, one of the largest exchanges in the world, FTX.
That's why I'm really proud to stand behind today's sponsor, FTX.
Why you might want to consider Yada?
Okay, so YouTube is less than 20 years old, but in that time, the platform has matured a lot. From people posting basic home videos to today where some channels rival the production quality of Hollywood studios. The secret ingredient that has made that all possible is money. 15 years ago, it was basically impossible to make any money on YouTube, which is why even the largest creators at the time were filming out of their bedrooms and making videos in addition to their regular day jobs. AdSense integrated a system where YouTube and a very small and very select group of creators could start to share in the native advertising that was introduced to the platform in 2007. That has since turned into a huge revenue stream for millions of channels, as the entry requirements to be a YouTube partner are now only 1,000 subscribers and 3,000 hours of watch time on your videos. YouTube's directly integrated advertising has its own long list of problems, but that's a story for another day. For now, there's another way that creators are making money, and it's by going around YouTube and making deals with companies to talk about a product directly like this.
With FTX, I have everything I need.
Depression can be a really tough thing to go through.
This video is brought to you by FTX. Go to metkevin.com/FTX to learn more and sign up to get free.
YouTube sponsors have been exposed for lying about what their product does, defrauding their customers out of billions of dollars, freezing people's bank accounts, selling their sensitive personal information, and according to some allegations, even giving unlicensed medical advice. So why does this keep on happening? Well, you might have noticed that companies that spend the most on advertising around the world are suspiciously absent from YouTube sponsorships. You've probably never seen your favorite creator talking about the thirst-quenching powers of an ice-cold Pepsi, or telling you that this video was brought to you by the towing capacity of the new F-150. Likewise, there's also a good chance that the only place you hear about the regular YouTube sponsors is on YouTube. There's a reason for that. Most YouTube sponsors fall into three main categories: subscription services, one-off novelty purchases, and dubious investments. You would be hard-pressed to think of something advertised by a YouTube influencer that didn't fall into these categories. Now, that's not just because basically everything is a subscription nowadays. Again, that's a problem for another video. There's another reason why you don't see normal products from normal brands on YouTube, and that's because most of them work on a completely different business model. Nord Security, HelloFresh, Yotta Bank, Teladoc, Dollar Shave Club, and yes, of course, even FTX are, or were, startup companies that took on massive investments from private equity and venture capital firms. Even companies like Masterworks that tell you that you will be the investor have real private equity investors behind the scenes giving them tens of millions of dollars. What do they need all that money for? Well, they need it for a business strategy known as blitzscaling. Blitzscaling is a finance bro reference to the Blitzkrieg of World War II, in which German troops advanced faster than their supply lines to gain ground before their enemies could react. Their position wasn't secured, but the hope was that other aspects of their military advance could catch up once they had already captured their intended target. Blitzscaling a business will involve taking on a lot of investor money to push out the product or service to as many customers as possible as quickly as possible, even if the business ends up spending more on advertising than it brings in through sales. This is an unstable business model clearly, but just like the Blitzkrieg, the hope is that the rest of the business can catch up once they've carved out market share. Blitzscaling can help businesses outpace regulations as well. By the time the authorities have decided if unregulated hotels or taxi services are legal or not, it doesn't matter because the business is already so popular it would be political suicide to ban it. This model is especially popular with subscription services because once an upfront sale is made, the business can keep on bringing in recurring revenue to generate profits after the initial marketing push. So what does that have to do with crappy YouTube sponsors? Well, YouTube and other influencer platforms are the perfect channel to introduce unknown brands like this for two reasons. Firstly, they are cheaper than traditional advertising channels. But more importantly, these companies can leverage the parasocial relationship that creators have with their audience to get them to inherently trust the brands they're recommending, even if they've never heard of it before. According to a survey conducted by Influencer Marketing Hub, 63% of respondents said they trusted influencers over the brands themselves, even if the influencers were given a script to read as part of their sponsorship deal. And let's be honest, basically every influencer is just reading their recommendations off a contractually obliged script. According to a study by the marketing company Nielsen, 92% of consumers trust recommendations from people they know, which sounds reasonable until you realize that those respondents also considered online influencers their friends. A brand like Coca-Cola isn't going to get much out of this kind of advertising. Most people have already tried it and made up their own minds. But some new product from a company that nobody's ever heard of is a prime candidate for word-of-mouth marketing. The traditional way to get word-of-mouth marketing was just to make really good products. But for businesses that want to blitzscale, that's too slow. So the next best option is to buy words from the mouths that are for sale. This means that businesses don't need to actually offer a good product to get that all-important recommendation. So while some are fine, a lot of them cut corners everywhere, so they can grow as fast as possible and keep their investors happy. Yotta Bank was a major sponsor here on YouTube when it was blitzscaling its banking service. It focused most of its attention on how to onboard as many customers as possible when interest rates were cheap, and by all reports neglected other areas of running a bank, like making sure that depositors' money would be kept safe. Compare this with a boring old established bank like JP Chase. They have nothing to gain from an influencer telling people about their savings rates or account features because everybody already knows they exist, and instead of elevating their brand image, an influencer post would probably degrade it. But there's more to this than just the companies. If you relied on businesses to not cut corners wherever they could, then everything would suck. The influencers themselves arguably share just as much responsibility in shilling bad products to their audience as the companies making bad products in the first place. Bad advertising is nothing new, but the difference is that influencers blur the line between upfront traditional advertising and a genuine recommendation. The brands themselves will encourage influencers to make their promotions seem as genuine as possible, and even despite laws about advertising disclosures, influencers will try to integrate their mandated sponsorship reads as subtly as possible. This can be especially damaging when the influencer is a supposed subject matter expert in an industry they're promoting products for. The reason that finance influencers promoting Yotta Bank, FTX, Masterworks, or various crypto projects was so damaging was because their audience went to them for financial advice. Health and wellness influencers promoting quacky supplements or questionable online therapy rightfully should get the same scrutiny. The companies themselves know this, and they will pay extra for a brand deal with a subject matter expert. Now, the reason that influencers take these sponsorships is threefold. The first is that influencers are just businesses, and they're businesses that have a very short shelf life. YouTube hasn't been around for that long, and even then, we've seen multiple generations of influencers fade into and out of relevancy. These people won't find a regular day job that pays nearly as well as influencing, and in many cases, their highly publicized antics make them effectively unemployable. So they have a few years to make enough money to set them up for the rest of their lives, which puts them in no position to turn down lucrative brand deals. Influencers who don't take these deals will also be competing with influencers who do. When people are producing Netflix quality videos, it's hard to stand out by just flicking on your webcam. The reality is, producing these videos is expensive, and lining up brand deals from the highest bidder ahead of time is the only way to ensure that the teams of people working on these videos get paid. Eventually, all YouTubers will fade into irrelevancy, but a bad brand deal isn't going to speed up that decline, and that's the third reason. There aren't any consequences for bad sponsorships. Even today, there are still influencers taking brand deals from BetterHelp, despite its extensive list of controversies. The influencers who promoted FTX to their viewers are still just as successful as ever, and even people who ran crypto pump and dump schemes are still enjoying popularity. Their videos will still get hundreds of thousands or even millions of views, and sure, there will be a few angry comments in their comment section, but if anything, this just improves audience engagement. The YouTube algorithm can't tell the difference between a good comment and a bad comment. It only sees that people are really connecting with a particular video, which means it will get pushed to more people. This is normally the part of the video where we should backpedal and say that these influencers aren't to blame, but they kind of are. Just because selling out might make personal financial sense to them and their business doesn't mean that we don't get to be angry when it comes at the expense of their audience. Okay, there's another element to this that's a little bit harder to hear. We know why bad businesses are attracted to influencer marketing and why influencers agree to work with them, but we are at least partially responsible for this problem as well. YouTube sponsorships are annoying. They break up a video and make YouTube feel like the bad old days of network television. When someone comes along and tells you that your irrational hatred for that brand that keeps popping up in every video you watch is actually totally justified, it feels good. And we tend to forget about all the other brands that are just trying to shill a product that does what they say it will. If you want to build a popular YouTube channel, the best place to start would be by picking the most popular sponsor of the time and then exposing it for its bad business practices and complicit influencers. Kind of like what we did just here. Subscribe.